apart from Murli, we have Jan Scott. And as I was saying, Jan is the star of the evening. She's the English language teacher and a master of applied linguistics. So she'll be the one who will be giving this the main presentation today. We have also joined by Ashima Singh. Ashima is the Director of Legal Associates, a law firm in South Auckland, and also board member of our Migrant Careers Support Trust. So thank you all the panelists for joining us and all the attendees. So before I give a quick introduction about us, I'll also go through the structure, what we're going to do today and what you can expect. So after the quick introductions, we'll hand over to Jan, and who will take us through her presentation. That will take around 20-25 minutes. Then we have plenty of time for Q&A. So all the attendees, if you want to ask questions, you have two options. So if you are the shy one who doesn't want to put the name and the face out, you can just put that question in the Q&A panel. So there's a Q&A panel and you can do that. And if you want to ask a question directly, you can raise your hand and I can enable your audio and video, and we can even see you and Jan can see you and you can talk to her as well. So, so both options will be there, but don't worry, we'll keep guiding you through that and we'll come back to that. So quickly about our Migrant Careers Support Trust. So we are a non-profit charitable trust which aims at providing skill development and training to the migrant community. And the idea is to help migrants get ahead, get into professional jobs, into the mainstream of New Zealand. So very often we hear words like social cohesion and diversity, etc., etc. But we feel that these words are hollow if there's no economic integration. So as migrants, a lot of us have been through the same journey. When you come to a new country, you want to settle down with a good job, a good career, and that's the start of a good life in a new country, and then everything follows. So our endeavor is that to provide you with the tools, provide you with the knowledge and the resources, connect you with knowledgeable people who can help you upskill into various aspects of career development. So it's not only about getting your first job, but also helping you excel in your career. So that's the objective. So today we are partnering with the English language partners, and the objective of today's webinar is communication for people who are seeking job. So just a word of putting things in perspective. We all, most of us do know English. We must have passed on some test while coming here. But coming from a migrant background, we all know that the way we communicate is very different from what we have witnessed in our home countries and what we see here in New Zealand. So that's why it's very important to understand the nuances of that verbal and written English. And that is what the focus will be for today. So without much more on that, I'll hand over to Murli from the English language partners, who will also say a few words and explain us what we can expect today.
Kia ora, namaste everybody, and great evening. Glad to be here with Migrant Careers Trust. So greetings to Gary and Ashima, and good to connect, and it's a good collaboration. And I'd like to also acknowledge Jan Scott, who's our very eminent and trained teacher who teaches English language and a number of programs with English language partners. So very quickly, I'm not going to take a long time because we want to hand over to Jan, but to give a bit of a perspective, an overview, English language partners was set up about 20 odd years ago, and we've got about 23 branches across the country. And what we do is we offer English language classes. So there is from the beginners to intermediate kind of classes. And we reach out to the migrants and also to the former refugees. So they've been quite successful in doing it. We are well recognized by the government. And from the NZQA perspective, we have been accredited as level 1, category level 1. So we are quite well known in the education sector for providing English language classes. But over the years, with migrants increasing in fold, we've also realized that we would like to help them prepare for society, prepare for being part of society in New Zealand. So we also offer some settlement type of program. And one of the best program that I'd always advocate is the Work Talk program, which is what Jan Scott is going to talk about today. So the Work Talk program is particularly about skills, tips, ways to improve your opportunities to get employment in New Zealand. And then subsequently, when somebody finds employment, then what we can do is there is a program called E4E, which is English for Employees. Now that program is for those who are working and who want to improve or expand your work balance or your work skills, basically. So we've got the two type of program related to employment for migrants and refugees. So there's Work Talk, which is about preparing you to find work, and then there's English for Employees, which is for people who found work but looking at improving their work communication. So today is Work Talk, and we can answer some questions about how do we enroll for this course later and all that. So let's listen to Jen. She's going to give us about 20 to 25 minutes about what this program is, and then question and answer, and then I can give you some further information about how you can enroll for this program. All right, so without further ado, Jan, you can take it away. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just take a moment to introduce you, Jan?
Thank you.
For
Sure.
formal introductions of Jan. So Jan has been teaching English since 2002. She started as a volunteer home tutor with English language partners in 1999 when she moved to Auckland with her husband and 2 kids. She has been living in Asia for 10 years before that and came here for her husband's job. She found it hard to settle here without any friends, family, or support network. Tutoring and helping other newcomers settle in Auckland helped her with her own settlement, so she decided to retain this as an English teacher. She further says, I'll put in her voice that she says, I started teaching in 2002 with Migrant Services North Shore. Since then, I worked at a private language school and taught academic reading and writing at Massey University, as well as teaching for ELP. I continued studying and learning everything I could about language and language acquisition part-time until 2016, when I completed my Master of Applied Linguistics at Massey University. I recently became a grandmother, so I'm enjoying that while working part-time for English language partners, teaching Work Talk, English for Employees, and professional speaking for migrants. So we have the perfect person today with us. Over to you, Jan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to share my presentation so you can look at that instead of looking at me. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction. I feel very important now. So like Murali and Gary have told you, I am an English language teacher. I work on the E4E program and the Work Talk program. And today I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that we teach at Work Talk about job seeking in New Zealand and the New Zealand workplace culture. We have a lot of migrants in New Zealand who are either not working or are not working at their qualification level, and that's a waste for us in New Zealand. That's a waste for you as well. So this quote, you won't believe how often I hear this from my students. So why do you think the picture of the fisherman, do you think he looks a little bit lazy? So a fisherman sits in his chair and waits for the fish to bite. He's not going to catch very many fish unless they're very hungry. And that is the same thing for you if you're looking for a job in New Zealand. If you just send out hundreds of CVs and applications, you're very unlikely to get a job. So what we teach you to do is to target your job application. Every single job that you apply for should have a different CV and a different cover letter. So tonight, just going to cover these basic topics, look at ways of finding work, look at how the best ways are of approaching employers, how to target your cover letter, targeting your CV for the job that you're applying for, just look at how to answer interview questions, and then a little look at Kiwi English and the workplace culture. So if I asked you, what have you done to look for work so far since you've been here in New Zealand? Most of my learners tell me they've been on Seek, they look on Trade Me, they look at Indeed, they might go to recruiters, and these are all perfectly legitimate ways to look for a job. But in fact, only about 30% of jobs are advertised this way in New Zealand. So what does it mean actively seeking work? How can you access the other 70% of jobs that are not advertised? So actively seeking work, it means exploiting all of your contacts and networks. It means finding jobs that haven't been advertised yet. So we recommend things like checking for vacancies on company websites, following companies on their social media posts. You can learn a lot from Facebook and Instagram and those social media platforms, because if you read about a new management team, for example, you might know that every time a new manager comes into a company, they like to employ new staff. So you can keep up to date with all these kind of things that are happening within the company. You can join professional organisations. If you're a teacher of English, you join TESOL-ANS. If you were an engineer, you would join the engineering organisation. Go to their seminars, go to their conferences and to their meetups. Then you will hear about jobs before that they actually are advertised online. We recommend cold canvassing, which is cold calling. So that means approaching an employer about a job when it hasn't been advertised in the usual way. So you might phone them, you might go face-to-face, or you might use email to approach them. You should network, use your networks, exploit all of your networks to help you find a job. Even if it's somebody from your own ethnic group, they might know about somebody else who knows about somebody else who can find you a job in that line of work that you are in. In New Zealand, permanent residents get help from government organisations. If you have permanent residents, you might get help from Careers New Zealand. There are other people that you can go to get help. LinkedIn is wonderful. LinkedIn is a whole new world in job searching. You have to have a great profile. You have to have as many connections as you can make. You can search out people in your industry, people in the companies that you want to work for. Check out the connections of your connections. And research the companies that you want to work for. And this includes, if you get an interview, researching your potential interviewer, so you can check them out on LinkedIn as well. So back to my lazy fisherman analogy. For the fisherman, there might be a lot of fish swimming around him, but they might not take his bait if it's not right. And so that's what you have to do with your job search. You might be really proud. You've got lots of skills and awards and experience, and you want to put them all on your CV. But in New Zealand, employers actually select candidates who can do the job and fit into their workplace. So every job application that you make, you need to target it a little bit differently so that each employer can see that you are the perfect candidate for their job vacancy. So how to do that? How do you do that? You have to identify what the employer wants, what they need and what they like, even down to the company culture. So this is where you have to research and use all your research. You have to study the job advertisement. You have to study the company website, their social media, their LinkedIn, and then describe your experience and skills in a way that match their requirements. So that you need to show that you can be a good fit for the company, and every single application you make is going to be different to the last one, because If you don't, your cover letter is going to end up in the bin. So can you look at these examples that are on the screen? So what do you think they show about the person who wrote them? Do you think that 14 years of experience, does that show that a person can do a good job? Maybe not. Maybe it just means they did a really bad job for 14 years. So you need to be more specific than that. If you say that you're familiar with the industry, same thing. It doesn't mean that you're good at this job. If you refer to your organisation rather than the name of the company, then you're just showing that this is the same letter that you've already written 100 times. So you need to use the company name. Use the people's names, personalise your application, show that this is an individual job application for this particular job. Okay? So your target, your cover letter, that's like the employer is meeting you for the very first time. So have you ever disliked somebody the very first time that you met them? It's like, it's so hard to change somebody's first impression. Your cover letter is also the first impression of your written communication skills. So if you don't impress the potential employer with your cover letter, then they're not going to take your application any further. They're not going to target you for the job, consider you for the job, sorry. You need to create a targeted cover letter that creates a really positive, memorable first impression for every job that you apply for. So even the small things that you find out in your research, like the company that projects an image of being cool and hip, then you use the kind of language, the less formal language when you're approaching them. But if it looks like this is a very formal, conservative company, then your language should reflect that in your job application. And that's going to encourage the employer to read the rest of your cover letter and to read your CV carefully. Similar story with your CV. This is a marketing tool, your personal tool to market yourself. This is what's going to sell you as a potential employee to the employer. So, you know, for now, just think about the last CV that you sent out. What did you have on the front page? Do you think that the employer could just glance at it and see, oh, wow, this person's got all the skills and qualities that I need? Did it reflect you as a person? Did it show your potential for this job? It has to stand out and show your potential employer that you are the ideal candidate. So you need to make, again, a memorable first impression. In 15 seconds, when they glance at your CV, can they see that you can do this job? Do they want to keep reading your CV? Is it easy for them to read? Does it look good? Does it show you to be a person that looks perfect for this role? You have to have the important information accessible to them on the first page so that they find it in that 15 seconds. You need to analyse every job advertisement, determine what information you need to make most prominent for this specific job application. So again, your research before you prepare your application is going to help you with this. And then you have to craft your CV. You need to have on your computer, you should have a master CV, and that is going to act like a database of everything that you've ever done. It can be long, it can be 20 pages long. This is where you put all those prizes, the awards, the achievements, the things that you're the most proud of. But you're never going to send it to anybody. So we recommend that newcomers to New Zealand, if this is your first job that you're applying for, that you use a functional CV. A functional CV highlights your skills and your achievements rather than a chronological CV that lists all of the jobs that you've ever done, all the achievements you've ever made starting with the most recent and going back through time. Recommended length is about 2 to 3 pages. And Then you've got to use the right language, and then you've got to format your CV nicely. They're all part of the image that you portray to the potential employer. So, for example, if you say, I have great attention to detail, but then your CV is full of inconsistent verb forms, it's got grammar errors, it's got typing errors, then you're showing them that you don't have great attention to detail. So proofreading is just as important as putting all the information there in the first place. And then you get the interview. So you've got a great cover letter, you've got a great CV, and you're invited for an interview. So again, preparation and research. What do you do to prepare for an interview usually? Do you just turn up at the time and ask and answer questions? Not likely. So you've got to prepare. You've got to research the company. You need to research their products, their work practices, the company hierarchy. Learn about the interviewers, learn their names. And LinkedIn is great for this. You can not only see their names, you can see their photo, you can read about their background. It's really important that you learn to pronounce everybody's names and pronounce the company name and the interviewers' names, because you're going to use these at the interview to show how suitable you are for this job. And the research is also going to help you predict interview questions and prepare answers ahead of time. So how to answer the questions. Oh, whoops, sorry. How to answer the questions. Well, you've got to demonstrate that you've got the skills to do this job. Employers and recruiters believe that past behaviour predicts future behaviour. So by giving examples of your past achievements, you can show the potential employer how you can handle the work in the future. And this is a lot better than saying, I've got a lot of experience, or that people used to praise me. That doesn't mean anything. That's meaningless. So to answer questions, we recommend using the STAR formula. STAR is an acronym that Gary was talking about, all our lovely acronyms before. We can use STAR for skill or behavioural questions. We can use it to demonstrate our great organisational skills, how we think so clearly. So the acronym stands for situation, task, action, result. So you start by describing a situation, then say what your task was, describe the action that you took to take it, and then the result of that action. Obviously, this example is going to show you in a positive light and how your great action achieved the result that people desired. Okay. So we use STAR also to answer behavioural questions. Employers will ask you behavioural questions to see how you might respond to some problems when you're at work, and there are no correct answers. So we offer specific, concrete STAR examples from your past roles, and your research will help you with predicting the questions that are going to show how suitable you are for this role. So, for example, New Zealand employers love team workers. Every job that you apply for says you must be a good team worker. So you need to bear this in mind if you're asked a question. If they ask you to describe your strengths, then when you're describing your strengths, you'll think about something that shows you as a good team worker. When was a time that you worked in a team and solved a difficult problem? And think and use that as your example as to how this is one of your best strengths, because you know that that's what the strength that they want. So, and you might be able to adapt situations to different questions as long as you prepare in advance. So we do that in our classes, obviously. You can do research before you go for an interview. So the takeaway for the job search. Okay, don't wait for your dream job to be advertised. Be proactive in your job search. Research the company extensively before you even send your application in. Target everything, cover letter, CV, to fit the role. Pay attention to how you craft your cover letter and your CV. think about the language that you're using. Think about the formatting. Even that is important. Make sure it looks nice. Make sure you proofread it. And use your research to predict interview questions. When you're answering interview questions, use STAR to help you demonstrate your suitability for the role. Okay, we're just going to move on for a minute to look at workplace English, Kiwi English. So these are some things that migrants might say about New Zealand English. So they come to New Zealand and they've got great English when they're in their home country, but apparently they find our accent incomprehensible at the first and at least a little bit difficult to understand as time goes by. So partly it's a matter of getting used to it and practicing, and that means getting out of your ethnic bubble, talking to Kiwis. You can watch TV, you can listen to the radio, join clubs, talk to people in the street, go to classes. You really need to get involved, and that will help your English become more natural. People don't mind if you don't get what they're saying as long as you try to join in with them. Another thing is our indirectness. So maybe you've noticed that people look a little bit offended sometimes when you speak, and this is because we're actually very polite in New Zealand, but we show this by our language, and we use very indirect language to do it. So if you look at the question on here, sorry, the very one at the very bottom, you wouldn't happen to have the time, would you? So this is a question that one of my students would ask. So I want you to think about, how would you answer this question if somebody asked it to you? So I asked Gary and Morley yesterday, and they both answered the same way my student did. She said, "Oh, I'm not busy, I've got time."
Yeah.
But actually, if you asked me this question right now, the correct answer would be 6:31. Because this actually means, what's the time? And so we use modal verbs, we use negative questions, we use past tense, all of these things to make our language less direct and therefore harder for you to understand. But for us, it makes us seem a lot more polite.
Yeah.
So how to deal with that? Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, and also we... wait, was I going to tell you how to deal with that? Yeah, you just need to learn to use it. So you need to find a class or something, and your interactions will be better if you learn how to use it. So these are some comments that migrants have made about the New Zealand workplace. I find a lot of students have worked in big multinational companies when they've been in their home countries. But unfortunately in New Zealand, we have, I think it's something like 90% of companies have less than 10 employees.
Yep.
So therefore, your role is likely to be wider than what it is in a big company. So some people might think it's a bit beneath them to share the workload and to do something that's not part of their specialty, but this is the way it will be in New Zealand. There's not enough jobs for everyone to specialise. Also, the hierarchy is very hard for non-New Zealanders to understand. It's difficult to, it seems like everybody's the same, everybody's equal. We have a very flat hierarchy. So you don't know who's the boss and who's the worker, and because everybody's talking and calling each other by their first name. You know, my manager might come and help me set up my classroom when I'm starting a new course. And that doesn't mean that I disrespect him because he does things like move chairs and tables around. It just means that we respect each other. On your first day at work, don't be surprised if you just get thrown in at the deep end. Nobody's going to tell you what to do or how you do it. And that's because in New Zealand, we hate being micromanaged. We like to be independent. We like people to leave us alone and let us do our work by ourselves. So they will expect you to be the same. But we like to be friendly as well. So it means we're always we should be on friendly terms with our co-workers. We don't have to be best friends. We don't socialise at the weekend necessarily. But if you're not friendly to your co-workers, then people are going to think there's something a bit wrong with you. Finally, advice. So, fitting in to the Kiwi cultural, it's okay, first of all, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for advice, even if nobody's offering it. You can ask. People won't think you're stupid just because you're asking for help. It's okay to ask for repetition if when somebody's speaking, you can't hear them. You need to be friendly. You need to be a team worker. A lot of people come here, new migrants, and they want to show their boss how committed they are to their job. So they work long hours. They don't take lunch break. They don't waste time chatting. That actually doesn't work in New Zealand. It's a good idea to get on with your teammate, with your workmates. And also a really important difference is using people's names. Learning how to pronounce them and not forgetting them. So in New Zealand, we show respect by using names. I know some cultures, my students call me teacher, or they might call me madame, or they might call me dear. Please don't do that in New Zealand. We hate that. So in New Zealand, you use people's names. That shows that you think they're important. Other advice, go to social events. You don't have to drink alcohol. Just go and have a glass of water, but just be a part of the team. And if you really want to really learn about New Zealand English and New Zealand workplaces, you can enrol in a communication course. And at Work Talk, we like to prepare you for the real world. So all of our teachers are qualified. All of our courses and materials are authentic. We're based in the real world in New Zealand, where our classes are friendly, they're interactive, they're supportive, they're safe.
Wow.
Okay. I think I've run out of time, have I?
No, that's fine. So have you finished your slides, Jan?
I've got one more. I'm just going to show you what our Work Talk class covers.
Yeah, perfect.
This is, if you do enroll in Work Talk, this is what we do. We cover we do 48 hours over 4 weeks. The main topic of job search skills, workplace language and interview skills. Keep building on it throughout the 48 hours. We look at your rights as an employee. A lot of migrants are exploited in New Zealand, and that's not acceptable. You have rights. You should have an employment contract. You should be working for the right salary. So we have someone come and talk to you about that. We also talk about the Treaty of Waitangi, which might seem strange in a Work Talk course, but the treaty underpins everything about life in Aotearoa, and you might even be asked questions about it in your interview. Okay. So we prepare you for everything. Okay, so thank you. I even got one for questions.
Yes, so lovely. So yeah, we'll I think open the floor now to questions. And thank you, Jan. That was really exciting. And I hope I had met you 8 years back when I was struggling, and this would have answered all my questions. But well, I was not that lucky that time. So to everyone, please, we'll start the interactive session now. We'll bounce off with a few questions that we have, and keep putting your questions in the Q&A panel, not the chat bot, please, right? So not the chat one, but yes, on the Q&A. And if you want to ask a question directly to Jan, you can raise your hand and I will enable your audio and video. So one quick question, Jan, we have from Lena. She says that now because of COVID-19, many people are losing jobs and having experience with one industry. If someone is basically experienced in one industry, how does he change the CV to suit the requirements to shift to a new industry in terms of like transferable skills and all that?
Yeah, like you said, transferable skills. So when we're talking about writing a CV in a functional style of CV, we talk about listing your skills. So yeah, I know this is going to be a big problem with a lot of people losing their jobs, but you need to look at what skills have I got and how can I use them in another job. And then when you're writing your CV, do it with the advertisement for the job that you're applying for or the job description, and think about how you could do those things. Lots of us can do other stuff that we don't have on our CV, but if you can think of a way of showing that you have the ability, then you could try doing it that way. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. I think that answers. Yeah. So, Ashima, you have any questions?
No, not at this stage. But I
Okay.
was
I
just
have one. So,
into Jan's whole seminar, because I have just jotted down points which I will just talk about it when I do the vote of thanks.
okay. Lovely. So one more question, Jan, which I had that, many people, how do we decide that when you're job hunting, you want to apply more jobs in a day because that's what you're doing. Sometimes full time you're hunting for a job.
Sure.
So, and you say that we have to customize the CV as per a job. So, where do we find the balance? How much time you think we should spend in applying a particular job? Is there any benchmark, anything you can provide us so we can, judge ourselves?
I think you need to spend enough time to make your job application effective. So make it personalized, make it different for every job that you apply for. If you've got so many jobs to apply for that you haven't got time to do them properly, think about which ones are genuine jobs that you should be applying for. I spoke to some recruiters at a conference last year, and they said if they get a lot of applications for different jobs from the same person, they end up blocking that person. So think about, is this really the job that I should be applying for? I know that you're in a hurry to get a job, but, just make sure you're applying for the right ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have one a hand raised by Nilanchal. Nilanchal, I'll promote you to a panelist so we can see your audio and video and we can allow you to talk. Nilanchal, can you unmute yourself and get your video and you can ask question to Jan? Yes, you're live now, Nilanchal. Yeah.
Hi, Jan. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Nilanchal.
Actually, my set of problems are completely different from the kind of things that you have just said. Actually, I'm a senior person, and Gary knows me. I have worked as a chief executive in a multinational insurance company.
Yeah.
But then, like Jan, of course, we have something in common with Jan. I also have done my master's in applied linguistics. Long time.
Fantastic.
Of course, then I was teaching English anyway. I started my career as an English teacher in a college.
Yeah.
But then the corporate bug started biting me, and then I kind of veered into the management side. But then, after I resigned my job in India and came back looking for a job, I have been, of course, the COVID situation has kind of exacerbated it. But then before that, I have been applying for many jobs. But then I am being, I get a lot of letters that your CV is fine, you have qualified, you are experienced, but you're too senior.
Yeah.
Which does it? Being senior, is it some kind of disqualifications in New Zealand market?
I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just an excuse.
Okay.
To be honest, but there is a way that you can approach that too. So what I usually say to students, if they are applying for a job for which they are overqualified, maybe just say to the potential employer, yes, I have got qualifications in this. However, this would be my first job in New Zealand, and I'd like to learn about the New Zealand workplace, and use that as a way of I'd like to learn about the New Zealand workplace, doing a job that I'm comfortable doing. So you don't want them to think, oh my God, he's going to leave as soon as he's got a bit of experience, but show them that there are possibilities, development possibilities for you within this company. But at this stage, this is perfect for you. It shouldn't be a thing that you're overqualified, but I know people are told that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have had many interviews also, both on the virtual interview and the actual interviews.
Yeah.
But then I have been told that you are good to be a chief executive person, not this is a junior job for you, and best of luck and good luck.
The thing is that New Zealanders don't like to say no, and they don't like to say we don't want you.
Being polite.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying about indirect language, this is the same thing. They will tell you you're too qualified, you're not qualified enough, your English needs improving, all kinds of things. In fact, we've got a better candidate. They just don't want to, and they don't want to say why. But
on this note, can I share a personal experience? This was many years back, I think 8 years back. Once I got a rejection letter from a company. It was so beautifully written that it was feeling like a certificate of achievement. I wanted to print it and frame it.
That's happened with me as well. I think two or three occasions when I came and applied for the jobs, always I used to get, oh, you are overqualified. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
I'm overqualified, then at least hire me.
I'll quickly go to the next one. Thank you, Nilanjan. And we will be actually doing another workshop for middle to senior level managers. Maybe keep a watch on what we are doing, and we'll catch you again. Thank you so much. So I'll go to Naved Hassan. He has a question.
Hi, Jane. This is Naveed speaking. Actually, I have a question. Basically, I came to New Zealand in 2017, and initially I secured my first job after maybe 5 or 6 months. But unfortunately, I joined some companies here, like 4 or 5 companies, or maybe 6 companies in New Zealand. But unfortunately, I got just 3 months contract or 6 months contract. So that is really uncomfortable to me to defend my 3 months job or 6 months job in New Zealand market. And today I also got an interview call, and the recruitment manager, he was asking me about the same questions. So, but actually I tried to defend myself that because I was open for any job in New Zealand and I can't secure a permanent position. So that's why I always select a particular role like contractual role or some sort of short-term assignments. So how could I defend myself in this scenario?
I'm not really sure. So you mean that all of the roles that you've had here have been very short term, and you don't know how to show that on your CV, or you think that's a negative?
Actually, I have already shown onto my CV, but I cannot defend it to the recruitment companies, or sometimes the recruitment manager, they ask me such question, why you leaving so early, maybe in 3 months or 6 months.
Okay.
So yeah.
But you finished in 3 months or 6 months because they were short-term contracts. Is that correct?
Yes,
well,
that's correct.
Maybe you just need to point that out, that you were doing short-term contracts while you settled into New Zealand or whatever, and now you're ready to look for a full-time job or a more permanent role. Yeah. I guess doing short, what you have to do is put a positive spin on everything. So maybe you were doing short-term contracts so you could get some experience within the New Zealand market. There's nothing wrong with that. But just maybe point out when you're describing the job that it was a contract, a short-term contract, that it wasn't a full-time job that you left. Right? Does that help?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Naveen.
Just one more question.
Quickly, please.
And can you please tell me about the redundancy? Because last time I lost my job because of redundancy, and I was recently hired in the company, and actually they lost one of the major client due to some other reasons, but because I was the recently hired employee in that department, they asked me to goodbye. So how can I defend in this scenario to the other company?
I think that's not a question for this forum, Navid. We'll have another webinar on employment rights, and I think let's please wait for that. Right, Jan?
Navid, that sort of a thing is
Maybe
for
Ashima can help,
employment sort of an expert lawyer or employment advocate to answer, because that is more of an employment dispute sort of a situation where how to handle that sort of a situation. But this particular platform is basically helping you how to get onto the job and what skills you require to get onto the job.
Yeah.
No. I'm not asking to my question is different. Basically, I was redundant, but I just wanted to defend my position because it's not my mistake to be a redundant person.
How to communicate? You're asking how to communicate in your future applications that you were made redundant.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the question.
Well, I think it's the same with any job. If you're asked why you left, you say that you were made redundant. That's not your fault. So it's not something that you have to defend.
Yeah. Okay. So which means, Jan, you don't need to be shy about it, right? Because I'm also meeting a lot of people who are redundant, but they are shy of saying that I got redundant.
I think if you're made redundant, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
If I don't know all the legal, I think Ashima maybe knows more about that. But if you're made redundant, it's because you were the last person employed, or
Yes,
something
that,
like that.
yeah.
So
So
it
basically, if you're made redundant, it's all because of the company.
Correct.
They could not
Yes.
handle or they could not manage your employment. That's why they made you redundant. But it's not something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That's why you're redundant.
Correct. Okay. Thank you, Navid. We have to take more questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question from Chow, and a good question again, a little similar to what we had discussed. She says that I have a question about weakness. How to answer about a weakness in a smart way?
I really like that question, Jan. You have to tell us that.
Oh my goodness. So what I recommend is, if you're asked about your weaknesses, that you talk about a weakness in your knowledge, not in your personality. So, for example, you can use the fact that this is your first job in New Zealand. Maybe you're unfamiliar with the New Zealand workplace. Maybe if, for example, you're an accountant and you haven't worked with New Zealand GST before, that you're not familiar with this. However, you are currently doing a course, or you're learning as much as you can, and cover it that way. Don't tell them that you're an impatient person, or that you lose your temper quickly, or that you're a perfectionist. Some people like to use that. I don't recommend that. People can see through that. It's just, talk about a genuine weakness, but a weakness in your knowledge. Even you can use English, but as long as you qualify that with, but I'm studying a course, name the course that you're doing. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that quite answers the question. I'll put another question. Sudha, I know you've raised your hand. We'll come back to you. Just a small quick question from Swami. He's asking that how can we be effective in graduate job search? And can you talk a little bit more about the transferable skills?
How can we be effective in the graduate job search? I'm not quite sure what you're saying. So you're a recent graduate and you're looking to get into a graduate program. I assume that's what you mean. I imagine that this is not a very good climate for it at the moment with COVID-19 and everything. But the same thing applies. There are graduate fairs, like employment fairs, career fairs, that universities hold them probably around this time of year. What is this, June? Yeah, probably around this time of year you'll find some career fairs. You can go to the companies directly, all of the banks. I don't know what kind of qualification you've got, but so banks, big companies, they take on graduates. I know my husband used to work in the ANZ Bank, and they have a graduate program. They take people straight from university, they train them into that kind of thing. I think you've just got to be proactive the same way you would with any kind of job application. What was the second part of the question?
A little bit about transferable skills.
Transferable skills. So transferable skills are the skills that you have either from your life or from your education. So if you're a recent graduate and you want to show that you've got good leadership skills, maybe you can talk about a time at university when you were part of a project and you were the leader of that project. If you want to talk about your hard working skills or things, you can refer back to things that you've done at university and part-time jobs. Really good way to have some experience, some transferable skills is to do volunteer jobs. Maybe Gary can help you out with that.
Definitely, yes. I think, that's good. So one very important question Anna has asked, and I think a lot of people ask the same question: how to answer if I don't have any experience in New Zealand yet? So, all jobs require New Zealand experience, and it's a chicken and egg story. So how do you, do that?
Yeah. So you don't have New Zealand experience. However, you've probably done exactly the same job in India, or I don't know if everybody here is from India, but if you're applying for a job as an IT specialist working on a shopping website or something, developing shopping websites, there is no difference to doing that in New Zealand or doing it in India or whatever country that you're from. So I think what you have to do is, you can't make New Zealand experience. You can get a volunteer job and use that as a way of saying that you've got New Zealand experience. But I think you've just got to show how your overseas experience can benefit New Zealand or this employer that you're applying to. And, quite often you've used exactly the same skills.
Yes.
IT workers, those kind of people, they don't really talk to people very much. So the fact that it's in one country or another really shouldn't matter.
Okay.
And again, it's somebody asked before about excuses, like they might give an excuse, might say you've got no New Zealand experience.
Yes.
They're just being polite. They just don't want to say you're not suitable for the job.
And also maybe I just want to add there one thing which I also recommend a lot of people. You're very right, try and get a volunteer job. And I think also people should explore opportunity of getting an internship in their area of industry you want to work. I think that's the best way to start your put your foot into the door, get real life New Zealand experience. A lot of companies value interns, and they give 2 to 3 months of internship. And in fact, many people have worked in my company as an intern, and they went with experience, young graduates, and they actually got a job because they got really hands-on experience. So please do consider that. Yeah. So are we okay with your? No, sorry. Then I think you'll have to put your question in the chat, and we'll ask that. Right? Thank you. I'll take another question in the meantime. One more question has come that some people have short work histories or have worked for the shorter time due to restructuring or change of scope in their work environment. Too many changes of jobs are a hurdle for job search. So how do we reflect that? Because sometimes it happens with migrants, they're finding their right place in the corporate world. So they may have changed jobs within 6 months. So how should they hide it, or should they?
I don't think you should hide it. I think maybe that's the way that we're talking about a functional CV as opposed to a chronological CV. So on your front page, show what your skills are. So, it depends on what kind of role you're applying for. Say if you were an accountant, for example, and you had done, I don't even know what accountants do that much, but you've got the GST stuff, the payroll or something. And so you just show that you've got payroll skills, and you say that when you're describing your skills, maybe give an example of a payroll skill that you did. And then when you're listing your jobs, you just need to put the name of for those very short-term ones, just put the times, the name of the company, and the name of your role. And you don't need to go into a whole lot of explanation for every job, particularly if you're doing the same thing each time.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. So there's another question by Sidra, but I think, Sidra, we have already answered your question. She's saying that doing volunteer jobs during our studies, is it good to put on a CV? So I think we've covered that. Yes, it's always good.
Absolutely. Put your volunteer job in the same way that you'd list any job. Yeah.
Yes. One question from Elena. She says, I have 15 years experience in finance in my country, but at the moment I'm a student and looking for a part-time job in hospitality. How can I change my CV? Should I have more experience in finance?
15 years of experience, but at the moment I'm a student looking for a part-time. I don't know. I think that you should downplay it. So if you're looking for a job in hospitality, when you're listing your skills, list your hospitality skills. And then on the second page, you can just list those jobs like we said before, the name of the company, the time that you worked for the company, and the title of that role. Yeah, you don't need to put a whole lot of information about your financial skills if you're applying for a job in hospitality, but just show that you've been working during that time. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. One more question from Enda. And this is actually a lot of migrants must be facing this problem. He says that I'm currently holding a work visa, while it seems like most jobs require and prefer residency. So how do I actually put visa status on the CV so that I can at least be considered for an interview?
Great question. I totally recommend that you put your visa status on your CV. If you can put it into a positive light, so so that you say that you've got a work visa valid until, for example, 2021, but it will qualify you for permanent residence. If it's going to give you a chance at permanent residence, then I think that's what you're doing it for, right?
Yeah.
Is that what the question was?
Yeah. I think so.
So they need to know that you're entitled to work in New Zealand.
Right.
They also want to know that you plan to stay in New Zealand. Most people will stay around 5 years in a job.
Yeah.
So show that you've got the right after your work visa. I think most people do, don't they, to then go on and apply for a permanent residence?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one more anonymous question from an anonymous person that says that, is it true that at the workplace it is preferred to be not raw, that is, use politically correct language? Is it common for people to sound nice, even if it's sometimes something serious like a team restructure?
Yeah, we like to sound nice. I mean, we don't like to cause offence. New Zealanders, face to face, we like to be friendly. So yeah, if you can do it by sounding nice, it's going to be better than if you sound not nice.
I have a tricky question for you. I don't know how you'll answer this. So this is from Sudha, and she says that, how do I relate my experience and skills to the job description, even if it doesn't match? So she's saying she's applying for a job which really doesn't match.
Got to find a way of matching it. If it doesn't match, they won't look at you. They find a way of matching it. Like I said, if they want a team leader and you've got leadership experience from doing something totally different, then use that. If they want somebody who's warm and caring and you're a mum, maybe you can relate it to that kind of thing. But you need to match. Matching's important.
Yes. It's like a matchmaking. You cannot do matchmaking. You cannot fake it. It has to be a real match.
Yeah. There was someone who asked a question about being an ESOL teacher. If you're not
yes. Can you answer that?
Some employers, we have at English Language Partners, we have several teachers. In North Shore, we have someone from Russia. We have someone from the Czech Republic. So if you've got the skills and they think that you're suitable, then, and international schools will also employ you because they teach international English. ELP, we kind of are aiming our English as a New Zealand English, so it's good if you've got some knowledge of local idiom and that kind of thing, but absolutely, you can get a job. But
yeah, now I might just take that further with that question. So if you want, send us your CV and we can have a look at it, and we'll point you in the right direction for that.
Oh.
So I think it's 7 o'clock, so let's give it a wrap. So I think we have answered most of the questions. If something is left, Murli, can you give your details or Jan's details, so people, if they have anything, they can contact you directly, and then we'll have over to Ashima to wrap up the day. Yeah. So Murli, can you give the details first?
Yeah, so I'm just typing to everybody so that they can take a note of it.
Okay,
I'll give my number and I'll give an email address where they can send inquiries for the course.
Sure.
So this course, as I said, for term 3 and term 4, this course is free for permanent residents, and there will be a cost attached to this program for non-permanent residents. So at the moment, we are working out the cost. So if you are not a permanent resident, you're still welcome to do the course, but there will be a charge for this. So please write to us and we'll let you know what it is. So I'm going to just give you my number and my email address, and you can start sending in your inquiries if you wish to participate in this 48-hour program. So it'll be generally 2 or 3 days a week for about 2-3 hours. So we'll model it, or we'll structure the program differently. And I just personally want to quickly thank Jan for doing this great presentation. Thank you, Jan. And I'm not going to take somebody's Thanksgiving away, but I just want to acknowledge everybody here today. I think some great questions have come, so I will just be busy typing away to everybody, and please feel free to contact us and we can take it from there.
Lovely.
Thank you, Kerry.
And good luck to everybody. Good luck to everybody with your job.
I think that was the brilliant session, I would say. Thank you so much, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all the attendees, because if they were not there, we panelists would have not done anything. So thank you, each and every one of you who has actually took the time out to come at 6 o'clock and then took the part in asking the questions. Your questions are really valid ones, which when I read all these questions, I could reflect myself almost 16, 17 years ago, where I was standing in the same sort of a situation, thinking about it, work visa, okay, do I match the skills or not, how to write it, how to match my CV with all those things. So yeah, each and every attendee, thank you so much for coming. And then thank you, Murliji, for, just accepting our invitation and just taking this effort to come and bring Jan along, who is the star of the day, I would say. Thank you, Jan, for answering each and every question of it. I mean, even the long one, which we were thinking, okay, should we answer through email or something?
Yes.
And that person must be very happy, because Murliji said, you can email us and then we can look into it. You never know. Maybe Murliji can hire that person. You never know. Yeah. So please send your CV and everything to Murliji, and then he can have a look at it. But Jan, in saying that, I have made few notes which are really actually important. Your first slide, which you put the quote, I have applied for more than 100 jobs and I got 0 replies. That is so true. I mean, I have done that and I got 0 replies initially, because I have done law here after 4 years. But during the initial period, I worked in McDonald's and, Countdown and all. Even applying for those basic hospitality jobs, you have to alter your CV. And the points which you mentioned, like for different job, you have to apply for different, your CV should be different. That is so true, because initially when I used the same CV, applied everywhere, I didn't get anything. And then I felt like, I think maybe I need to just tailor my CV as per the job description. And then I got my first job. So it is really important, whatever Jan is saying, it really works that way. And then, I really like the point where you said actively seeking jobs. So there are other ways, because normally we stick to Trade Me and Seek and Indeed, maybe, and sometimes LinkedIn. That's it. We don't go beyond that. Yeah. But you really pointed out some good ways to actually look into it and even contact the employers. Yeah. Because me being an employer, I do get the CVs almost every day. We are not advertising anywhere that we are hiring people or not, but we do get them. And how to make that marketing, CV is more like a marketing tool, as you mentioned. It is so true, because when I see the CV, how you mentioned about 15-20 seconds, that really lasts an impression. Because when I see the CV of anyone applying at my firm, 15-20 seconds, I'm like, oh no, I don't think so, okay, just reject it. So that is so true. Each and every word you said, it really works. Because earlier I was an employee and now I'm an employer, so I could see what you're trying to say and how it really matches. And same thing with the interview skills, because when people come here, when they do not tell their weaknesses and they're just trying to bluff, being an interviewer, you can actually make out from their body language. Yep. So it is very important how you said that at least if you have any weaknesses, just disclose it and just show the weaknesses in your knowledge, not in your personality. See, I made the notes because those points are so good. I was
but like, but don't just show your weakness, show that you're addressing it. That you
and
very good.
Things are, and you were, the last point which I wrote was, you were very right that as an employer, I always look for team spirit, that this person, it should be a good team member. I'm really particular about that, and I always ask that question. So thank you so much, Jan. I mean, I could relate so many points in it, and this is just a summary I made. But thank you, Gary, for organizing this whole thing and bringing every one of us together. We are really privileged to have you on board.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, everyone. And I think the beauty of today's discussion is, we all have a self-doubt when we're applying. We all think this happens only with me. And actually it was going, when all these questions were coming and all the points you were raising, I've also gone through that. And I used to think it happened only with me. So actually, I'm very happy today it happens with everyone. So that gives you a level of comfort that we are all in this together, and it happens with everyone. So please don't have any self-doubt, because sometimes it may just be a matter of time that you may not get the right company or the right job. So never underestimate yourself, never let your confidence go down, and keep upskilling, keep learning, and you'll get there someday. So on this note, I'll thank everyone, and to all the attendees, please keep in touch on our Facebook. Our website is www.migrantcareers.org.nz. Very soon we are launching one webinar like this every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. So on that note, thank you everyone. We've run over time. Sorry for that. And keep your job search on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.